The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of a weathered ranch house, and Willa Lancaster stepped down into the New Mexico dust with her carpetbag clutched tight, trying not to think about how she had just become property of a man she'd never met. It was 1878, and Los Alamos was barely more than a scatter of buildings clinging to the high desert landscape. The advertisement had been clear enough back in Boston. Bride wanted, must be willing to work, will provide room and board. She had signed the contract with trembling hands, desperate to escape her brother's crowded household where she'd been nothing more than an unpaid servant since their parents died. At least here, she reasoned, the servitude would be honest. She would cook and clean for her husband, bear his children, and try to find some scrap of dignity in the arrangement. The ranch house stood against the backdrop of distant mesas, sun-bleached wood, and a sagging porch that had seen better days. Beyond it, she could see a barn, corrals, and land that stretched toward the horizon. The driver dropped her trunk beside her with a thud that made her jump. "Good luck to you, miss," he said, tipping his hat. There was something in his tone that made her stomach tighten. Before she could respond, the door of the house swung open, and a man stepped out onto the porch. Willa's breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of the sky just before a storm. He wore dusty work clothes and scuffed boots, and when he moved down the steps toward her, there was an easy grace to him that spoke of strength without arrogance. "You must be Miss Lancaster," he said, and his voice was warm, lacking the gruff command she'd braced herself for. "I'm Ryder Barrett." "Welcome to the ranch." She straightened her spine, lifting her chin. "Mr. Barrett, I've come as agreed. I'm prepared to fulfill my duties as your wife." Something flickered across his face, an expression she couldn't quite read. He glanced at the stagecoach driver, who was already climbing back up to his seat, then back at her. "Let me get your trunk. You must be tired after the journey. Come inside and we'll talk." Talk. The word seemed strange. What was there to discuss? The contract had been signed. She followed him up the steps, watching as he hefted her trunk as if it weighed nothing. The inside of the house was dim and cool after the bright sunlight. She took in the sparse furnishings, the dust motes dancing in the shafts of light from the windows, the sense of a place where a man lived alone without much thought to comfort. Ryder set her trunk down and turned to face her. "Please, sit down. Can I get you some water? Coffee?" "Water would be fine, thank you." She perched on the edge of a wooden chair, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. This was not how she'd imagined this meeting. She'd expected demands, perhaps criticism of her appearance, instructions on her duties. Instead, he was offering her refreshment like she was a guest. He returned with a tin cup of cool water, and she drank gratefully. He pulled another chair around and sat facing her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Miss Lancaster, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." Her heart sank. Was he going to reject her, send her back? She had no money for return passage, nowhere to go. "I don't understand. The arrangement was clear." "The arrangement," he said slowly, "was made by my foreman without my knowledge or consent." She stared at him. "What?" "Jack, my foreman, he took it upon himself to place that advertisement. He's worried about me, I suppose. Thinks I need someone to take care of the house, cook proper meals. He meant well, but he had no right." Ryder ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "I didn't send for a mail-order bride. I'm sorry you've come all this way for nothing." The water in Willa's stomach turned to ice. "For nothing," she repeated softly. All the fear, the desperate hope, the long journey, the severing of what few ties she'd had left in Boston. For nothing. "I'll pay for your passage back, of course," he continued, "and compensate you for your trouble. It's the least I can do." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. She stood, setting the cup down with a click. No, I won't go back, Miss Lancaster. There's nothing for me back east. Nothing. I came here because the situation was impossible, and I'd rather take my chances as a frontier wife than spend one more day living on my brother's charity, sleeping in a corner of the kitchen, raising his children while he reminds me daily that I'm a burden. Her voice was shaking now, months and years of suppressed frustration pouring out. So if you don't want a wife, fine, but I'm not going back. I'll find work here somehow. I can cook and clean and sew. Surely someone needs help. Ryder stood too, holding up his hands in a calming gesture. Easy now. I'm not trying to force you anywhere, just trying to be honest about the situation. I appreciate your honesty, Mr. Barrett, but it doesn't change my circumstances. She took a breath, trying to regain her composure. If you'll direct me to the nearest town, I'll seek employment there. Los Alamos isn't much of a town yet, he said quietly. Maybe 200 people, most of them men. The work available for a woman alone isn't the kind you'd want. She knew what he meant. The saloons, the brothels. She felt her face flush. Then what do you suggest? He was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those storm-gray eyes. How good are you? With the cooking and such. I kept house for my brother's family for 5 years. 6 children, all under 12. I can cook, clean, mend, do laundry, tend a garden, preserve food, manage a household budget, and I'm not afraid of hard work. Can you ride? The question surprised her. A horse. I've ridden some, not expertly. Can you shoot? I've never tried. He nodded slowly, seeming to come to some decision. Here's what I'm thinking. I do need help around here, that part's true enough. The house is a mess, I eat poorly, and I'm so busy with the ranch work that things are falling apart. But I won't marry you under false pretenses, and I won't take advantage of your situation. Then what are you proposing? A job. A real job with fair wages. You'd have your own room, your own space. You'd help with the house and the cooking, but you'd also learn ranch work. I need an extra pair of hands with the stock, especially come calving season. In return, you get room and board plus wages, same as I pay my other hands. You'd be an employee, not a servant, not a wife. You'd be free to leave whenever you choose, free to keep your own money, make your own decisions. Willa felt dizzy. That's highly irregular. This is the frontier, Miss Lancaster. Lots of things are irregular out here. A slight smile touched his lips. We make our own rules to some extent. What matters is what works, not what Boston society thinks is proper. And your reputation, mine. Anyone who wants to gossip can take it up with me. As far as the hands know, you're here as hired help. Your room will be separate with a lock on the door. You'll be safe here, I give you my word. She wanted to believe him. Everything about his manner, his eyes, the way he stood there waiting for her answer without pressure or manipulation, suggested he was sincere. But she'd learned to be cautious. Why would you do this? Why not just send me back? Because I remember what it's like to be desperate and trapped with no good choices, he said quietly. And because you came all this way with courage enough to face an unknown future, that deserves respect, not rejection. Something in her chest loosened. She met his gaze steadily. All right. I accept your offer, Mr. Barrett, but I insist on pulling my weight. I won't be charity. Wouldn't dream of it. He held out his hand. Partners, then? She looked at his extended hand, calloused and honest, and placed hers in it. His grip was warm and firm. Partners. The smile that spread across his face transformed it, lighting it up with genuine warmth. Call me Ryder. Mr. Barrett makes me feel like I should be wearing a suit. Willa, then. She felt a strange flutter in her stomach that she firmly ignored. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. She'd do well to remember that. Come on, I'll show you your room, then we can figure out supper. I should warn you, my cooking skills begin and end with burnt coffee and jerky. She followed him through the house. It was larger than it had appeared from outside. A main room with a fireplace, a kitchen area with a cast iron stove, and a hallway leading to 3 bedrooms. He showed her to the smallest at the end of the hall. It was sparse but clean, with a real bed, a small dresser, and a window that looked out over the desert landscape. "It's not much," he said apologetically. "It's mine," she said softly, running her hand over the quilt on the bed. "That makes it enough." He left her to settle in, and she sat on the bed for a moment, trying to process the turn her life had taken. She'd come expecting to be a wife in name only, a servant in truth, bound by law and custom to obey. Instead, she'd found something she'd never anticipated: respect, choice, the promise of equality. She didn't know what to do with it. But as she unpacked her few belongings, smoothing out her 2 spare dresses and setting out her mother's silver hairbrush, the only thing of value she owned, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. That evening she made supper from the meager supplies in the kitchen. Beans and bacon, biscuits and coffee that was actually drinkable. Ryder ate like a man who'd been starving, which perhaps he had been in his own way. "This is wonderful," he said, reaching for a 3rd biscuit. "Best meal I've had in months. It's simple fare. It's made with care." "That's the difference." He looked at her across the table. "Tomorrow I'll take you around the property, show you how things work here. Day after that we'll go into town for proper supplies. You'll need different clothes too. You can't work in those." He gestured to her traveling dress, already dusty from the journey. "I have limited funds for new clothes. Consider it an investment. Can't have my partner falling over her skirts while learning to rope." He said it casually, but she felt the weight of that word again. Partner. "You're really going to teach me ranch work?" "Why not? You're here, you're willing, and I could use the help. My foreman Jack can handle most of the day-to-day operations, but we're short-handed. Lost 2 men last month to the silver strikes up north. Everyone wants to get rich quick." He shook his head. "Ranching isn't glamorous, but it's honest work. The land provides if you respect it and work hard. How long have you been here?" 5 years. Came west after the war, drifted for a while, worked other people's ranches until I'd saved enough to buy this land. It's not much yet, but it's mine. No one can take it from me, no one can tell me how to run it." There was a fierceness in his voice that she recognized, the need for independence, for self-determination. She felt it in her own bones. "The war," she said carefully. "You fought." "I did." His expression closed off slightly. "It was a long time ago." She didn't press. Everyone had ghosts from that time. The whole country was still healing, still figuring out what it meant to be United States after tearing itself apart. Out here, so far from the battlefields and the burned cities, it sometimes felt like a different world entirely. They finished the meal in companionable silence, and she insisted on cleaning up while he went to check on the horses one last time. Alone in the kitchen, washing the dishes in a basin of heated water, she let herself absorb the strangeness of the day. This morning she'd been on a stagecoach, resigned to a future of subservience. Tonight she was standing in her own kitchen, in a sense, with a locked door waiting for her at the end of the hall and the promise of wages in her pocket. And she was sharing a house with a man who had the most unsettling eyes and the kindest smile she'd ever seen. "Don't be foolish," she told herself firmly. "He's being decent, that's all. Don't read more into it." But as she lay in her bed that night, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the desert night, she couldn't help but wonder what the future held. For the first time in years, the unknown didn't terrify her. It thrilled her. Morning came early on a ranch, she discovered. Ryder knocked on her door before dawn, calling that coffee was ready. She dressed quickly in the dim light, splashing water on her face from the pitcher he'd left outside her door, and emerged to find him already dressed for work. "Morning," he said, handing her a cup of coffee. "Hope you're ready for the grand tour." The ranch was larger than she'd realized, with grazing land stretching in all directions. He showed her the barn first, introducing her to the horses. His own mount was a big buckskin gelding named Soldier, who regarded her with intelligent eyes and suffered her cautious pat. "He looks intimidating, but he's steady," Ryder said. "We'll start you on Daisy. She's gentler." Daisy turned out to be a pretty sorrel mare with a white blaze. "We've got about 200 head of cattle scattered over the property. In a few months, we'll drive them to market. That's when things get really busy." He showed her the chicken coop that needed repair, the garden plot that had gone to weeds, the tack that needed mending. Everything required work, attention, care. It was overwhelming and exciting at once. "I won't lie to you," he said as they walked back toward the house in the strengthening sunlight. "It's going to be hard. There's more work than hours in the day and something always needs doing, but it's satisfying too. At the end of the day, you can see what you've accomplished." "I'm not afraid of hard work," she assured him. "I believe you," he glanced at her. "But I also want you to speak up if something's too much or if you need help. That's what partners do. They watch out for each other." There was that word again, settling into her chest like a warm coal. They were headed back to the house when a rider appeared in the distance, kicking up dust as he approached. Ryder shaded his eyes, then relaxed. "That'll be Jack, my foreman." Jack turned out to be a grizzled man in his 50s, weathered as old leather, with sharp blue eyes and a wary expression. He pulled up his horse and dismounted, looking between Willa and Ryder with obvious concern. "So she came," he said without preamble. "She did. Jack, this is Willa Lancaster. Willa Jack Morrison." "Madam." Jack touched his hat brim, but his eyes were on Ryder. "Can I have a word?" "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Willa. She's working here now." Jack's eyebrows rose. "Working as hired help. I've explained the situation to her, and we've come to an agreement that suits us both." The older man's jaw worked for a moment, then he turned to Willa. "Miss Lancaster, I apologize. I shouldn't have placed that advertisement without Ryder's knowledge. I was worried about him out here alone, working himself to death, and I thought, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. I was wrong to interfere." His honesty surprised her. "You meant well, Mr. Morrison, and in a strange way it's worked out. I needed a new start, and Mr. Barrett has offered me fair employment. No harm done." "She's tougher than she looks, Jack," Ryder said with a slight smile. "I think she'll do just fine here." Jack studied her for another moment, then nodded slowly. "If you're sure about this, I am." "All right, then. Welcome to the outfit, Miss Lancaster. Any friend of Ryder's is a friend of mine." This time when he touched his hat, it was with genuine respect. They spent the morning going over the ranch operations. Jack lived in a small house about a mile away with his wife, Rosa, who was apparently the only other woman for miles around. There were two other hands who worked the ranch, brothers named Tom and Billy Crawford, who were out checking on the cattle. "You'll meet them soon enough," Jack said. "Good workers, both of them. They'll treat you respectful or answer to me and Ryder." The casual protectiveness touched her. These men, who barely knew her, were already circling the wagons on her behalf. True to his word, the next day Ryder took her into Los Alamos. The town was rough and raw, buildings thrown up quick without much thought to permanence. A general store, a saloon, a small church, a handful of other establishments. Men far outnumbered women, and she felt the weight of curious stares as they rode down the dusty main street. Ryder kept close beside her, his presence a solid comfort. At the general store, he helped her pick out practical clothes, split skirts for riding, sturdy boots, work gloves. The storekeeper, A portly man named Henderson raised his eyebrows but said nothing as Ryder paid for everything. "She works for me," Ryder said calmly. "She needs proper gear." Of course," Henderson said, though his eyes gleamed with speculation. This would be all over town by nightfall, Willa knew. They were loading the packages onto the wagon when a woman's voice called out. "Ryder Barrett, is that you?" A woman was hurrying toward them, plump and smiling, with graying hair tucked under a bonnet. "Mrs. Chen," Ryder said, and his whole demeanor lightened. "Good to see you. And you hermit, you never come to town anymore." Her eyes landed on Willa with open curiosity. "And who's this?" "Willa Lancaster. She's working at my ranch now. Willa, this is Mrs. Chen. She and her husband run the restaurant." "Working at the ranch," Mrs. Chen repeated, her gaze sharpening. "I see. Well, Miss Lancaster, welcome to Los Alamos. I hope you'll visit us at the restaurant sometime. It's nice to see another woman's face around here." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I'd like that." Good. She patted Willa's arm. "You take care of yourself out there, dear, and Ryder, you make sure she's treated right." "Always," he said firmly. As they rode back to the ranch, Willa said, "She seemed kind." "She is. She and her husband came out here 15 years ago, opened the first restaurant in town. They've weathered a lot. Mrs. Chen doesn't miss much, but she's fair. If she's on your side, the rest of the town will follow her lead." "Does it matter what the town thinks?" "Shouldn't, but it does. Out here, reputation matters. People need to know they can trust you." He glanced at her. "For what it's worth, I think you made a good impression." That night she tried on her new clothes. The split skirt felt strange but liberating, allowing her to move freely in a way her dresses never had. When she emerged from her room the next morning dressed for work, Ryder nodded approvingly. "Much better. Now you look like a ranch hand." He paused. "That's a compliment, by the way." She laughed, surprising herself. When had she last laughed freely? "I'll take it as one." He started teaching her to ride properly that morning. It was harder than it looked, finding the rhythm of the horse's gait, learning to communicate through reins and legs and weight. She fell off twice, landing hard in the dust, but each time she got up and climbed back on. "You've got grit," Ryder said, watching her. "Most people would have quit by now." "I don't quit," she said, wincing as she settled back into the saddle. Her whole body was going to ache tomorrow. "I'm learning that." There was something in his voice, a warmth that made her look at him quickly, but his expression was unreadable. The days fell into a rhythm. She rose early, made breakfast, then spent the mornings learning ranch work while the afternoons were devoted to the house and garden. Ryder was patient but demanding, expecting her to learn quickly and remember what she was taught. She found she thrived under the challenge. The other hands, Tom and Billy, proved to be good-natured men in their 20s who treated her with friendly respect. Jack's wife, Rosa, a quiet Mexican woman with kind eyes, visited one afternoon with fresh tortillas and an offer of friendship that Willa accepted gratefully. "Is good you are here," Rosa said in careful English. "Ryder, he is good man but too much alone, is not good for the soul." "We're just employer and employee," Willa protested. Rosa smiled knowingly but said nothing more. The weeks passed, turning into a month, then two. Summer heat beat down on the high desert and Willa learned to work through it, her skin browning despite her bonnet, her hands developing calluses. She grew stronger, more confident. She could rope now, though not expertly, could ride Daisy with ease, could handle the chickens and tend the garden and shoot a rifle well enough to hit a target more often than not. And she was falling in love with Ryder Barrett, though she tried desperately not to. It was in the small things. The way he always made sure she had enough water when they were working. The way he listened when she spoke, really listened, like her words mattered. The way he'd leave wildflowers on the kitchen table sometimes. saying nothing, just a splash of color in the rough house. The way he laughed at her jokes, the way he trusted her with more and more responsibility, the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching, with an expression that made her heart race. She told herself it was foolish. He'd made it clear their relationship was professional. He was her employer, nothing more. But her heart didn't seem to understand the distinction. It came to a head one evening in late August. They'd been working on repairing the corral fence, hot and exhausting work, and had finally finished as the sun set in a blaze of orange and red. They stood together watching the light fade, and Willa was acutely aware of how close he was standing, the warmth of his arm almost touching hers. "Beautiful," she said softly. "Yes," he agreed, but when she glanced over, he was looking at her, not the sunset. Their eyes met and held. The moment stretched, taut as a wire. She saw something in his face that matched the feeling in her chest, want and uncertainty and something deeper. Then he stepped back, breaking the spell. "We should head in. You must be tired." Disappointment crashed through her, but she nodded. "Yes, long day." They walked back to the house in silence. The easy companionship of earlier strained now. She went straight to her room, pleading exhaustion, and lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. This couldn't continue. She either needed to leave or they needed to address what was growing between them. The decision was made for her the next day when Jack rode up with news. "Cattle rustlers hit the Morrison place last night. Ran off 20 head. Ryder's jaw tightened. Anyone hurt?" "No, but they're getting bolder. This is the 3rd ranch they've hit this month. We need to set up a watch. Tom and Billy can take turns at night and I can help," Willa interrupted. Both men looked at her. "It could be dangerous," Ryder said. "I can shoot. You taught me. And you need all the hands you can get." She met his gaze steadily. "I'm not going to hide in the house while everyone else takes risks." Jack looked at Ryder, who sighed. "She's right. We're short-handed as it is. All right, we'll set up a rotation. But Willa, you don't take unnecessary chances. If you see something, you fire a warning shot and ride for help. Don't try to be a hero." "Same goes for you," she shot back. Jack hid a smile. "I'll go tell Tom and Billy. We'll start tonight." That evening, as they were working out the watch schedule, Ryder pulled her aside. "I need you to understand something. If anything happened to you, I'd never forgive myself." "And if something happened to you," she asked quietly, "how do you think I'd feel?" He stared at her, and she saw the moment he understood what she'd inadvertently revealed. "Willa." "We don't have to talk about it," she said quickly, her face burning. "I know the arrangement between us. I haven't forgotten, but I do care what happens to you. We're partners, right? Partners look out for each other." "Is that what we are?" His voice was low, rough. "Just partners?" Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "What else would we be?" He moved closer, and she found herself frozen, barely breathing. "I told myself I was doing right by you, giving you independence, treating you with respect, not taking advantage of the situation." He laughed without humor. "Truth is, I've been wanting to kiss you since the day you stood in my house and told me you wouldn't quit. And every day since then, it's gotten harder to remember all the reasons I shouldn't." "Then don't," she whispered. "Don't remember them." He cupped her face in his work-roughened hands, searching her eyes. "You're sure? Because once I start down this road, Willa, I'm not going to want to turn back." "I'm sure." He kissed her then, gentle at first, then deeper as she rose up on her toes and wrapped her arms around his neck. He tasted like coffee and dust and something uniquely him, and she felt like she was coming home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said simply. "Probably have since you looked at me with those fierce eyes and said you weren't going back. I tried not to, told myself it wasn't fair to you, but I can't help it." Joy flooded through her. "I love you too. I tried to be sensible about it, but you made it impossible." He laughed, a real laugh full of relief and happiness. "So much for being just employer and employee." "We're still partners, though," she said firmly. "That doesn't change." "No," he agreed, pulling her close again. "That never changes. Always partners, always equals." They stood there in the fading light, holding each other, and Willa felt a peace she'd never known. This was nothing like what she'd expected when she stepped off that stagecoach. It was so much better. The kiss was interrupted by a shout from the direction of the barn. They broke apart, instantly alert. Tom was running toward them, waving his hat. "Ryder's coming, 4 of them." Ryder's expression hardened. "Get inside the house. Take your rifle. I'm not leaving you." "Willa, no. We face this together or not at all." He looked like he wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The Ryders were approaching fast, and Jack and Billy were running from the bunkhouse. Everyone converged in the yard as 4 men rode up, pulling their horses to a stop in a cloud of dust. The leader was a big man with a scarred face and mean eyes. "This the Barrett Ranch, it is. State your business." Ryder's voice was cold, and Willa noticed he'd positioned himself slightly in front of her. "We're looking for work. Heard you might be hiring." "You heard wrong." The man's eyes flicked around the group, lingering on Willa. "Pretty setup you got here. Nice stock. Be a shame if something happened to it." "Is that a threat?" Jack stepped forward, his hand near his gun. "Just an observation. Things can happen on these lonely ranches. Accidents, fires, stampedes." The man smiled, showing tobacco-stained teeth. "Course, for a reasonable fee we could make sure nothing like that happens." "Get off my land," Ryder said quietly. "Now, that's not very friendly." "I'm not feeling friendly. You've got to the count of 5. The tension ratcheted up. Willa's hand tightened on her rifle. She could feel everyone poised on the edge of violence. 1. The scarred man's smile faded. 2. His companions shifted in their saddles, hands moving toward their guns. 3. "You're making a mistake," the man said. 4. They wheeled their horses and rode off, but the leader called back, "You'll regret this, Barrett." Everyone stayed tense until the Ryders disappeared from view. Then Ryder turned to Jack. "Double the watch tonight. Everyone stays armed. If they come back, we defend what's ours." "Right." Jack looked at Tom and Billy. "You heard him. Let's get organized." Ryder took Willa's arm and guided her toward the house. "You should stay inside tonight. We've already had this argument. I'm not hiding. Those men are dangerous. So are you when you need to be. So is Jack. So am I." She touched his face. "I meant what I said. We face things together." He pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You're the stubbornest woman I've ever met." "Good thing you love me then." "The best thing," he agreed. They organized watches through the night, working in pairs. Willa took a shift with Billy from midnight to 3, walking the perimeter of the ranch buildings, every sense alert. The desert night was full of sounds, and every snap of a twig or rustle of brush made her jump. But nothing happened. Dawn broke clear and cool, and the day passed without incident. That evening, Ryder called everyone together. "We can't keep living on edge like this. Those men will either come back or they won't, but either way we have work to do. Stay alert, stay armed, but we can't let fear rule us." "Agreed," Jack said. "We show them we're not intimidated." The next few days were tense but uneventful. Life on the ranch continued. Cattle needed tending, fences needed mending, hay needed cutting. Willa and Ryder worked side by side, stealing moments when they could. A quick kiss in the barn, holding hands as they walked back from checking the herd at sunset. They hadn't discussed what this meant for their future, what shape their relationship would take. There were complications. She was still technically his employee, though the wages he paid her sat untouched in a tin box under her bed. The living arrangements were still separate, though both of them felt the pull toward something more. It was Rosa who forced the issue, arriving one afternoon with a basket of tamales and a knowing look. She found Willa in the garden and sat down on the bench beside her. "You love him," she stated simply. Willa saw no point in denying it. "Yes, and he loves you. I see it in his eyes when he looks at you." "Yes. So why are you still pretending?" Rosa made an impatient gesture. "You live in separate rooms, you call each other by formal names. You act like employer and worker when anyone can see you are more. It's complicated." "No. It's simple. You love each other, you should be together. What is complicated about that? I came here as a mail-order bride. He refused to marry me under those circumstances, which I respected. But now I don't want him to feel obligated. I don't want him to think I expect marriage just because we've admitted our feelings. So you ask him, you talk, this is not so hard." Rosa patted her hand. "Men, they are sometimes fools. They try to do the honorable thing when the honorable thing is to follow the heart. You be brave, yes. You tell him what you want." After Rosa left, Willa thought about her words. She'd been brave enough to cross the country alone, brave enough to stay when she could have left, brave enough to learn a whole new way of life. Surely she could be brave enough for this. She found Ryder in the barn, working on a saddle that needed repair. He looked up when she entered, his face lighting up in that way that made her heart skip. "Hey, everything all right? We need to talk." His expression turned wary. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least I hope not." She took a breath. "What are we doing, Ryder?" "What do you mean?" "I mean us. We love each other, but we're still living like we're strangers. Separate rooms, careful not to touch in front of others, acting like this is still just a business arrangement. I don't know how to do this, and I need to know what you want." He set down the leather strap he'd been working on and came to her, taking her hands. "What I want is you. Permanently. Completely. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours. I want to build a life together, raise children if we're blessed with them, grow old watching sunsets from our porch." He paused. "But I don't want you to feel trapped. You came here thinking you'd have no choice, and I gave you freedom instead. I won't take that back. What if I choose you? What if I choose this life, this ranch with you, not because I have no other option but because it's what I truly want? Then I'd be the luckiest man alive." He pulled her close. "Marry me, Willa. Not because of some contract or advertisement, but because we love each other. Be my wife, my partner, my equal in everything." "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and she melted into him. When they finally broke apart, both of them were grinning like fools. "When?" he asked. "As soon as possible. I don't want to wait." "Neither do I. There's a circuit preacher who comes through Los Alamos once a month. He's due in about a week. Or we could go to Santa Fe if you want something more formal. Here is perfect, Los Alamos, small and simple with our friends around us. Whatever you want." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I should have given you a proper proposal, got down on one knee, had a ring ready. You gave me something better. You gave me choice and respect and love. That's worth more than any ring." "You'll get a ring anyway," he promised, "and a proper wedding, small as it may be." They told the others that evening over supper. Jack clapped Ryder on the back, grinning broadly. "About time you came to your senses, boy. It's Miss Lancaster who's marrying me. I think she's the one who needs her senses checked." "Willa," she corrected. "Please call me Willa. We're all family here." Rosa, when she heard the news the next day, beamed with satisfaction. "I told you was simple. Follow the heart." The week passed in a flurry of preparation. There wasn't much to do, really, but Willa cleaned the house from top to bottom, preparing for her new life as truly a wife and not just an employee. Mrs. Chen heard the news and insisted on providing food for a small celebration. Rosa made a new dress for Willa, cream-colored with delicate embroidery. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful. The preacher, a thin man with kind eyes named Reverend Phillips, arrived just after breakfast. They'd set up in the main room of the house, simple and practical. Jack stood up with Ryder and Rosa stood with Willa. Tom and Billy were there, scrubbed clean and looking uncomfortable in their Sunday clothes. A few neighbors had come as well, ranchers from miles around who'd heard the news. Willa wore Rosa's dress and carried a bouquet of wildflowers that Ryder had picked that morning. As she stood across from him, holding his hands, listening to Reverend Phillips speak about love and commitment and partnership, she felt a completeness she'd never imagined possible. "Do you, Ryder James Barrett, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" "I do," Ryder said firmly, his eyes never leaving hers. "And do you, Willa Marie Lancaster, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" "I do." Her voice was steady and sure. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Ryder pulled her close and kissed her thoroughly, to the cheers and whistles of their friends. When he pulled back, both of them were laughing. "Mrs. Barrett," he said softly. "Mr. Barrett," she replied. "Partners," they said together. The celebration was simple but joyful. Mrs. Chen had outdone herself with the food, and someone produced a fiddle. They cleared the furniture and danced in the main room, Willa in Ryder's arms, the two of them circling slowly to music and laughter. "Happy?" he asked, his lips close to her ear. "More than I knew was possible." As the sun set and their guests began to leave, Jack pulled them both aside. "I'm happy for you both, truly, but I need to tell you something. Those men who came through last week, I heard in town they're part of a bigger gang that's been working this territory. They haven't given up on you. You need to stay alert." Ryder's arm tightened around Willa's waist. "We will." "Thanks for the warning." After everyone left, they stood together on the porch watching the stars come out. "Not exactly the romantic wedding night you deserved," Ryder said. "Threats from outlaws and all." "It's our life," Willa said. "The real one, not some fantasy, and I wouldn't change it." She turned in his arms. "Besides, the night's not over yet." He smiled and swept her up, carrying her across the threshold of their home. It was the same house she'd entered months ago as a mail-order bride, terrified and resigned. Now she entered it as a wife in truth, loved and loving, an equal partner in every way. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a discovery of each other that felt both new and somehow familiar, like coming home. Afterward, lying in his arms in the bed they would share from now on, Willa felt a profound gratitude for the strange path that had led her here. "What are you thinking?" Ryder asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "That I arrived expecting servitude, and you gave me equality. That I expected to be a possession, and you called me partner. That I thought I knew what marriage would be, and you showed me something completely different." "We showed each other," he corrected. "You taught me just as much, about courage and strength and what it means to be true partners." She kissed him. I love you too, always will." They slept tangled together, and Willa woke in the early dawn to find him watching her, a soft expression on his face. "Morning, wife. Morning, husband. Ready to start our first day as a married couple?" "Absolutely." They fell back into the rhythm of ranch life, but now it was different, richer. They worked side by side during the day and fell into each other's arms at night. The threat of the outlaws hung over them, but they refused to live in fear. They took precautions, stayed armed, kept watch, but they also lived fully. A month after their wedding, the threat materialized. Willa was in the garden at mid-morning when she heard gunshots from the direction of the south pasture. Her blood turned to ice. Ryder and Billy were out there checking the herd. She grabbed her rifle and was running for the barn when Jack burst out. "Stay here," he commanded, already mounting his horse. Not a chance. There was no time to argue. They rode hard toward the sound of gunfire. As they crested a rise, Willa saw the scene below. 4 men, the same ones from before, were trying to drive off a portion of the herd. Ryder and Billy had taken cover behind an outcropping of rocks, pinned down by gunfire. "I'll circle around," Jack said. "You provide cover from here." Her hands were shaking, but she steadied them, found her aim, and fired. The shot went wide, but it had the desired effect. The outlaws realized they had company and suddenly found themselves caught between 2 fronts. One of them made a break for it, and she fired again, this time hitting his horse in the rump. The animal bucked, throwing its rider. Jack was firing now too, and Ryder and Billy seized the chance to move to better cover. The fight was brief but intense. When it was over, 1 outlaw was wounded, 2 had fled, and the 4th, the scarred leader, was dead. Billy had taken a bullet in the arm, nothing serious but enough to need tending. Ryder reached Willa just as she was sliding off her horse, her legs suddenly weak. He grabbed her, holding her tight. "Are you hurt? Tell me you're not hurt." "I'm fine. Are you? Thanks to you and Jack." He pulled back to look at her face. "You could have been killed, so could you? That's why I couldn't stay at the house." She was shaking now, the adrenaline fading. "I had to help, I had to. I know." He kissed her forehead. "My brave, stubborn wife." Jack rode up with the wounded outlaw trussed on his horse. "We need to get this one to the sheriff in town, and someone needs to tell the law about what happened here." "I'll go," Tom offered, appearing from where he'd been watching the northern section. He'd heard the shots and come running. The sheriff arrived the next day with a posse, took statements, and hauled away the wounded man. "That gang's been terrorizing this whole territory," he said. "With their leader dead and another in custody, the rest will likely scatter. You folks did everyone a service." "We just protected what was ours," Ryder said after the sheriff left. An uneasy peace settled over the ranch. The threat was gone, but the memory of the violence remained. That night, Willa and Ryder lay together, both unable to sleep. "I keep thinking about what could have happened," she whispered. "If they'd hit when we were less prepared, if you'd been alone out there, but I wasn't. And we were prepared. We protected each other just like we promised." He tightened his arms around her. "This life isn't easy or safe. I can't promise there won't be more danger, but I can promise you'll never face it alone." "Same promise back to you. That's what makes a strong partnership. Equality, facing the world together." She kissed him. "Always together." The seasons turned. Fall came to the high desert, painting the landscape in shades of gold and rust. They drove the cattle to market, a grueling 2-week journey that tested everyone's endurance. But it was profitable, and Ryder returned with money to invest in improvements for the ranch. "What do you want to do?" he asked Willa, spreading the plans out on the kitchen table. "It's your home too. Your opinion matters just as much as mine." Together they decided. A new barn, repairs to the house, expansion of the herd. Willa also insisted on setting aside money for books and a small fund for the community church that was being built in Los Alamos. "Why books?" Ryder asked, curious. "Because I want our children to have learning, and because I've always wanted a library, even a small one." "Is that silly?" "Not at all, it's perfect. They're children." They'd spoken of it in the abstract, but now it felt more real, more immediate. The possibility of life growing from their love. Winter came, harsh and cold. They spent long evenings by the fire, reading or talking or simply being together. Willa taught Ryder to play chess with a set Rosa had given them as a wedding gift. He taught her to play the harmonica, laughing at her attempts. "I sound like a dying calf," she protested. "A very melodious dying calf," he assured her, which earned him a playful swat. These were the moments she treasured, the quiet intimacy of shared life. The way he listened to her ideas about improving the ranch. The way he consulted her on decisions, treating her opinion with genuine respect. The way they negotiated their life together, true partners in every sense. Spring brought calving season, and Willa discovered she had a knack for the work. She was patient with the laboring cows, gentle but firm, and she felt a deep satisfaction in helping new life into the world. It was during calving season that she realized she was late. At first, she thought nothing of it. The work was demanding, her body exhausted. But as the days passed and certain signs became unmistakable, she felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She waited until she was sure, until there was no doubt. Then one evening after supper, she took Ryder's hand and led him outside to their favorite spot on the porch. "I have something to tell you." He turned to her, immediately attentive. "What is it?" "I'm carrying our child." His face went through a rapid succession of expressions. Shock, joy, wonder, fear. "You're sure?" "As sure as I can be. I should probably see a doctor to confirm, but all the signs are there." He let out a whoop of joy that startled the horses in the corral and pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet. "We're going to be parents. We're going to have a baby." She laughed, giddy with his reaction. "Yes, we are." "When?" "Late fall, I think. November, maybe early December." He set her down carefully as if she were suddenly made of glass. "You need to rest more, no heavy work. Maybe you should stay in the house, Ryder Barrett. Don't you dare try to wrap me in cotton wool. I'm pregnant, not ill. I can still work. But the baby will be fine. Women have been having babies and working right up until their time for millennia. I'll be sensible, I promise. But I won't be treated like an invalid." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew her too well now. "All right, but if something feels wrong, you tell me immediately. Promise me." "I promise." They stood together watching the sunset paint the sky, his hand resting on her still flat stomach, both of them marveling at the miracle growing there. A child born of love and equality, who would grow up seeing parents who respected each other, who worked side by side, who faced the world as true partners. "Thank you," Ryder said softly. "For what?" "For trusting me, for loving me, for building this life with me, for this child." His voice was thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd have this. A real home, a true partnership, a family." "Neither did I." She leaned against him. "I stepped off that stagecoach expecting servitude and subjugation. You gave me freedom and love instead. You showed me what marriage could be when built on respect and equality." "We showed each other," he corrected, as he always did. "None of this would exist without both of us." Word of the baby spread quickly through their small community. Rosa was delighted, immediately beginning plans for baby clothes and a cradle. Mrs. Chen insisted on teaching Willa special recipes for keeping up her strength. Even Jack, gruff as he was, looked pleased. "Ranch needs young blood," he said. "About time." Willa continued to work through the summer, adapting her tasks as her body changed. She spent more time on the gentler work, less time on horseback. Ryder fretted despite his promises not to, but he never tried to stop her, trusting her to know her own limits. They spent the evenings planning, transforming one of the spare rooms into a nursery. Ryder built a cradle with his own hands, careful and loving in each detail. Willa sewed blankets and tiny clothes, marveling at the smallness of them. Boy or girl? Ryder asked one evening, his hand on her swollen belly. "Does it matter?" not even a little. Either way, they'll grow up knowing they can be anything, do anything, that they're valued and respected. They'll be so loved, Willa said softly, so very loved. In October, a letter arrived from Boston. Willa stared at it for a long time before opening it. Her brother, whom she hadn't heard from since leaving, writing now. Probably he'd heard somehow that she'd married and he wanted something, but when she opened it, the contents surprised her. Her sister-in-law had died in childbirth, leaving her brother with 6 children and no idea how to manage. He was begging her to come back to help him, promising better treatment this time. She read it aloud to Ryder, watching his face carefully. When she finished, he said, "What do you want to do?" "I'm not going back," she said immediately. "My life is here now, but I feel for those children. They're my nieces and nephews and they've lost their mother." "We could send money," Ryder suggested. "Help him hire someone to keep house and care for them. We can afford it. Would you do that?" "Even though he's nothing to you, he's your family, which makes him mine, and those children deserve care." He took her hand. "Write him back. Offer financial help with conditions. He needs to treat whoever he hires fairly, pay proper wages, give them respect. If he agrees, we'll send regular funds." She kissed him, overwhelmed by his generosity. "You're a good man, Ryder Barrett. I married a good woman. She taught me about compassion." They sent the letter and a bank draft. Months later, they'd receive a reply, grudging thanks and agreement to their terms. Willa felt she'd closed a chapter of her life with grace, helping without sacrificing herself. In early November, Willa woke in the middle of the night with the first pains. She touched Ryder's shoulder and he came awake instantly. "It's time," she said. He went pale but moved quickly, dressing and running for Rosa, who'd agreed to serve as midwife. Within an hour, their bedroom had transformed into a birthing room. Rosa calmly giving instructions, Ryder holding Willa's hand and looking terrified. Labor was long and hard. There were moments when Willa thought she couldn't continue, when the pain was too much. But Ryder never left her side, his voice in her ear, steady and loving. "You can do this. You're the strongest person I know. Just a little more, my love, just a little more." And finally, a baby's cry filled the room. Rosa laughed with delight. "A boy, you have a son." Ryder was crying, Willa realized, tears streaming down his face as Rosa placed the baby in Willa's arms. He was perfect, tiny and red-faced and howling, absolutely perfect. "Hello, little one," Willa whispered, exhausted and exhilarated. "Hello, my son." "He's beautiful," Ryder breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with one finger. "Perfect." They named him James after Ryder's father who died during the war. James Barrett, born in the high desert of New Mexico, child of love and partnership. The first weeks were exhausting and wonderful. Willa had never been more tired or more happy. Ryder was a devoted father, changing diapers and walking the floor with James when he cried at night, never complaining. "We're partners, remember?" he said when Willa protested that she should be the one getting up. "That means we share everything, including the middle of the night screaming." They fell into new rhythms, their life reshaped around this tiny person who demanded so much and gave so much in return. Jack and the Hands were endlessly amused by the sight of Ryder with the baby strapped to his chest in a sling Rosa had made, going about ranch work with James sleeping against his heart. "Never thought I'd see the day," Jack said, shaking his head but smiling. "New times," Ryder replied. "Children need their fathers, not just their mothers." Winter passed into spring, and James grew, becoming alert and curious. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's stubborn determination, evident even at such a young age. One evening, sitting on the porch with James between them, Willa said, "Do you ever think about how different this could have been? If your foreman hadn't placed that advertisement, if you'd sent me away, if we hadn't taken a chance on each other. All the time, Ryder admitted. But mostly I think about how grateful I am that it worked out the way it did. I was so lonely before you came, and I didn't even realize it. I thought I just needed hired help, but what I really needed was you, a partner in every sense. I was so scared when I arrived, she confessed. I thought I was trading one form of servitude for another. I'd accepted it, resigned myself to a life without choice or voice. And then you offered me something I'd never even imagined: respect, equality, love. Best decision I ever made, he said, leaning over to kiss her. James, between them, made a disapproving sound that made them both laugh. I think he's jealous, Willa said. He'll have to get used to it. I plan on kissing his mother frequently for the rest of our lives. The years passed, marked by the changing seasons and the growth of their family. 2 years after James, they welcomed a daughter, Sarah, fierce and bright from the beginning. Then 3 years later, another boy, Thomas, quieter than his siblings but with a deep thoughtfulness. The ranch prospered. With Willa's organizational skills and Ryder's knowledge of the land and cattle, they built something sustainable and profitable. They were respected in the community, known for fair dealing and generosity. When drought hit the region one year, they were among the first to offer help to struggling neighbors. We do well when everyone does well, Willa said, and Ryder agreed. They hired more hands as the ranch grew, and Willa made sure every one of them was treated fairly, paid well, given respect. Some of them brought families, and the ranch became a small community in itself. Jack and Rosa grew older but stayed nearby, beloved by all. The children called them aunt and uncle, and they doted on the younger generation. Los Alamos grew too, from a rough frontier town into a real community. A school was built, and Willa served on the board, advocating for education for all children regardless of gender or background. She donated books from their growing library, and every child in the school learned to read and write and think. Education is freedom, she told Ryder. I want every child to have the choices we had to fight for. On their 10th anniversary, Ryder took her up to a high ridge overlooking their land. The ranch stretched out below them, prosperous and beautiful. Cattle dotted the pastures. The house had been expanded, a second story added for the children. Barns and outbuildings stood sturdy and well-maintained. Look what we built, he said, his arm around her waist. Together, she said. Always together. Always partners, he agreed. Do you remember what you said to me that first day? That you weren't going back, that you'd rather take your chances on the frontier than live without dignity. I remember. You taught me what courage looks like, what dignity means, what partnership really is. He turned to face her, taking her hands. Every day with you is a gift, Willa, every single day. I love you, she said simply. From that first moment when you offered me choice instead of obligation, I've loved you. It's grown deeper every year, every shared challenge, every triumph and struggle. You're my partner in the truest sense. They stood together watching the sunset, as they had so many times before. Below them, they could see the children playing near the house, Jack teaching James how to rope, while Sarah and Thomas chased chickens and dissolved into giggles. This was their life. Built on respect and equality, on love freely given and received. It wasn't always easy. There were still challenges, still dangers, still hard times. But they faced everything together, true partners in every sense of the word. Years continued to pass. The children grew, learned, became themselves. James became a fine rancher, skilled and fair like his father. Sarah shocked the community by deciding she wanted to study law, and Willa and Ryder supported her completely, sending her to school back east. Thomas found his calling in veterinary medicine, his gentle nature perfect for the work. "You've raised them well," Jack said one evening, now quite elderly but still sharp. "Taught them to think for themselves, to treat others right, to value substance over convention." "We taught them what we learned from each other," Willa said. "That partnership and respect are the foundations of everything." Jack died peacefully in his sleep the following winter, and they buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch he'd helped build. Rosa followed 6 months later, simply worn out from grief and age. Their losses were felt deeply by everyone who knew them. "They were the best of people," Ryder said at Rosa's funeral. "They taught us about loyalty and friendship and family. We'll honor them by living the values they embodied." More years passed. Willa and Ryder grew older, their hair graying, their movements slower but their love undiminished. They became grandparents, delighting in the next generation. James married a smart young woman named Elizabeth who fit right into the family. Sarah, after finishing law school, came back west and set up practice, becoming one of the first female lawyers in the territory. Thomas opened a veterinary practice in Los Alamos and married a teacher named Anne. The ranch, now under James's management with his parents' guidance, continued to thrive. The family remained close, gathering often for meals and celebrations. On their 30th anniversary, the whole family threw them a party. The house was full of people, noise, laughter, life. Standing on the porch watching the celebration, Willa leaned against Ryder. 30 years, she marveled. "It feels like yesterday and forever ago all at once." "Best 30 years of my life," he said. "You, without question." She looked up at him. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day, when you offered me employment instead of marriage?" "I said a lot of things that first day. You called me your partner. Before you even knew me, before we loved each other, you looked at me as an equal. That changed everything, Ryder. That changed my life. You changed mine too. You showed me what it means to be truly seen, truly valued. Every day with you has been an adventure." Inside, someone called for them to come cut the cake. They went in together, hand in hand as always, surrounded by the family they'd created, the life they'd built. Later that night, alone in their room, they lay together in the bed they'd shared for 30 years. The house was quiet now, everyone having gone home or to bed. "What do you think happens next?" Willa asked. "We're not young anymore. The children are grown. What's the next chapter?" "Whatever we make it," Ryder said. "That's always been our way, hasn't it? We write our own story, together, always partners." She smiled and kissed him, and they held each other in the darkness. Two people who'd found in each other something rare and precious. A love built on equality and respect, on partnership in the truest sense. A love that had weathered every storm and grown stronger with each passing year. The years continued their steady march. Willa and Ryder grew old together, moving more slowly but still active, still involved in the ranch and the family and the community. They sat on the porch together every evening, watching the sunset, talking about the day, simply being together. "I think that's one of life's great secrets," Willa said one evening. "That it's not the grand gestures that matter most, but these quiet moments, just being together." "Agreed," Ryder said, his hand finding hers. When Willa was 75, she fell ill with a fever that the doctor couldn't quite identify. For a week, she drifted in and out of consciousness while Ryder sat by her bedside, holding her hand, telling her stories of their life together. "Remember the day you arrived," he said softly. "You stepped off that stagecoach looking so brave and so scared. I fell a little in love with you right then, though I didn't realize it yet. The way you lifted your chin and told me you weren't going back, that you'd make your own way. I knew then you were someone special." Her eyes fluttered open. "You were special too. You gave me something no one else ever had. Choice. Respect. You saw me as a person, not a possession or a burden. That was the greatest gift. We gave each other gifts, he said, his voice thick with tears. So many gifts over so many years. Don't cry, she whispered. We've had a wonderful life. No regrets. No regrets, he agreed. Just gratitude. She recovered, to everyone's relief, though it took months. Ryder nursed her with infinite patience, and she marveled at how their roles had shifted over the years. Sometimes she was strong and he needed support. Sometimes he was strong and she needed support. Always they were partners, sharing the burdens and the joys. They celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch house rang with laughter and love. Looking around at the family they'd created, the legacy they were leaving, Willa felt profound satisfaction. This, she said to Ryder that night, this is what matters. Not land or money or status, but this. Family built on love and respect. Thanks to you, he said. You showed me what family could be. We showed each other, she corrected, as he always had. Always together. They lived to see New Mexico become a state in 1912, a momentous change. By then they were both quite elderly, but they insisted on going to Santa Fe for the celebration. We helped build this place, Ryder said. We should see it become official. Standing in the crowd, Willa thought about the young woman who'd stepped off the stagecoach all those years ago, scared and desperate and resigned to a life of servitude. She could never have imagined this future, this full and rich life built on partnership and love. Ryder died peacefully in his sleep at 82, with Willa beside him. He simply didn't wake one morning, slipping away as gently as sunset fading to night. The family gathered, grief-stricken but grateful that he'd lived so long and so well. At the funeral, Willa stood straight and strong despite her own age and sorrow. He was the best man I ever knew, she told the assembled crowd. He showed me what it means to be a true partner, not through domination or subservience, but through respect and equality. He changed my life, and through me, he changed our children's lives, teaching them to value partnership over power. That's his real legacy. After Ryder's death, Willa lived another 2 years. She remained active, involved with her family, still sharp-minded though her body was failing. She spent her days on the porch, watching the land she and Ryder had built together, remembering. The night before she died, all 3 of her children gathered around her bed. She looked at each of them in turn, these people she and Ryder had raised with love and respect. I want you to remember something, she said, her voice weak but clear. Your father and I built something special, not just this ranch, but a way of being together. True partnership where both people are valued equally, where both voices matter, where love grows from respect. Don't lose that. Teach it to your children and have them teach it to theirs. That's how we change the world, one family at a time. We will, Mama, Sarah promised, tears streaming down her face. We promise. Willa died peacefully that night, and they buried her beside Ryder on the hill overlooking the ranch. On the headstone, the family inscribed the words that had defined their relationship. True partners, always together. James took over full management of the ranch, running it with the principles his parents had taught him. He paid fair wages, treated everyone with respect, and made the ranch a place where partnership and equality were valued. The Barrett Ranch became known throughout the state as a model operation, not just for its profitability, but for how it treated its people. Sarah continued her law practice, fighting for women's rights and equality under the law. She never forgot what her parents had shown her about partnership and respect, and she spent her career working to enshrine those principles in law. Thomas became a beloved veterinarian, known for his compassionate care and his willingness to treat any animal, regardless of whether the owner could pay. He remembered his parents' generosity and lived it out in his own way. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren grew up hearing stories about their remarkable great-grandparents, about how Willa had arrived expecting servitude but found love and equality instead, about how Ryder had rejected the conventions of his time to offer true partnership, about how together they'd built not just a ranch, but a legacy of respect and love that echoed through generations. Decades later, when the original ranch house was renovated and turned into a museum, they found letters tucked away in an old box. Letters between Willa and Ryder from the early days before they were married, while they were figuring out their relationship. One letter from Ryder to Willa, written while he was away buying cattle, said simply, "My dearest partner, the ranch isn't the same without you. I'm efficient without you here, but purposeless. You give meaning to everything we do. Come home soon. Your equal always, Ryder." And one from Willa to Ryder, written while he was sick with a fever. "My love, you must get well. I can run the ranch without you if I must, but I don't want to. I want to run it with you beside you as your partner. We're better together than apart. Always your equal, always your love, Willa." These letters, and others like them, became treasured documents. They showed a relationship that was revolutionary for its time, where husband and wife treated each other as true equals, where partnership was lived out daily in word and deed. The story of Ryder and Willa Barrett became part of the region's history, told and retold. The woman who arrived expecting servitude and the cowboy who gave her equality instead. Their love story wasn't marked by grand gestures or dramatic moments, though those happened too. Instead, it was marked by daily choices, by respect given and received, by partnership lived out in the mundane and the profound. They showed that love built on equality is stronger than love built on dominance. That partnership creates something greater than either person could achieve alone. That treating each other with respect and dignity is the foundation of everything else. Their descendants carried these lessons forward, generation after generation, spreading the values of partnership and equality through their actions and choices. The ranch remained in the family, a testament to what could be built when two people worked together as true equals. And on the hill overlooking the ranch, two headstones stood side by side beneath the wide New Mexico sky. Two lives intertwined, two people who'd found in each other the partnership they'd both been seeking. They'd arrived at each other's lives by chance and stayed by choice, building a love that outlasted them, a legacy that lived on in the family they'd created and the values they'd embodied. True partners, always together. That was how they'd lived, and that was how they were remembered, and in the end, that was everything that mattered.